Ukrainian paratroopers, together with other units, have prevented another large-scale attack by the Russian army in the Kursk region of Russia. The Russians, who wanted to advance with a large number of armored vehicles, were stopped by artillery and drone strikes. Most of the equipment and the manpower participating in the attack were destroyed. In the daily attacks on the positions of the Ukrainian army, various armored combat vehicles, including tanks, infantry, armored fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers, have recently been used more and more. According to the Ukrainian side, the number of infantry participating in the attacks has also increased in recent days. It should be noted that, along with Russian servicemen, North Korean soldiers are also fighting in the Kursk region.
During offensives, the Russian armed forces attack aircraft, make extensive use of civilian transport not intended for combat operations. There is a critical shortage of combat equipment. The head of the Center for Countering Disinformation under the Security Council of Ukraine, Andriy Kovalenko, reported this on Telegram. The Russian armed forces stock of armored vehicles is apparently almost exhausted. The occupiers are using Soviet passenger cars, buggies, motorcycles and even scooters in battle. Now, due to significant losses of armored vehicles as well as logical failures in fuel as a result of strikes on oil refineries and oil depots, the Russians rely more on infantry attacks. And the infantry uses this kind of equipment as well as motorcycles, buggies and their own feet, Kovalenko wrote. Russian volunteers cooperating with the Russian armed forces have begun collecting funds to purchase scooters for fast and safe transportation and for combat missions. The Oryx Osint project has recorded the loss of at least 20,000 pieces of equipment by Russia during the full-scale Russian-Ukrainian war. Jacob Janowski, one of the project administrators, reported on this. Although the project ceased active operations in October 2023, some of its participants continue to record equipment losses during the Russian invasion. Since Oryx's calculations are based only on visually confirmed losses that can be found in open sources, the reported losses should be considered a minimum limit for the overall assessment. In total, the project estimates that from the beginning of the invasion until January the 18th, 2025, Russia has lost 20,004 units of equipment. Of these, 15,039 units were destroyed and another 842 were seriously damaged. In addition, 1,115 units were abandoned on the battlefield with an unknown status, and the Ukrainian military captured 3,008 units as trophies. The losses of armored combat vehicles, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers and MRAPs amounted to 11,597 units. Of these, 8,720 were destroyed, 367 were damaged, 975 were abandoned, and 1,535 were lost to captivity. In addition, 437 units of towed artillery systems, 869 units of self-propelled artillery systems, and 451 multiple rocket launchers were lost. At least 298 air defense systems, 134 planes and 151 helicopters were also lost. As previously reported, an OSINT researcher discovered over 200 cases of suicides of Russian soldiers on the battlefield. Ukrainian troops record many cases of suicides by Russian soldiers after unsuccessful assaults, most often by wounded soldiers, but sometimes even by infantrymen. Ukrainian President Zelensky published photographs of 2 North Korean soldiers captured by the Ukrainian armed forces on the X website last Saturday. As the Times notes, they are among the first North Korean prisoners of war captured in combat since the Korean War in 1950. Videos of interrogations have also appeared online in which prisoners admit that they do not know what country they are in. When asked if they want to go home, one nods yes, while another says, "I want to live in Ukraine." As Sokil Park, director of the organization Freedom in North Korea, notes, these 2 people finding themselves in an environment immeasurably different from the one they have known all their lives will be frightened, confused, and faced with an impossible choice. It's very difficult to leave North Korea, not necessarily because of the indoctrination, but because it's your home. Your family is here. And for most people, that's a huge factor, he says. There's also the fear that if you decide not to go home, what might happen to your family members? Daniel Tudor, co-author of North Korea Confidential, says the consequences for alleged traitors can be severe. They will be calculating, I can live in Europe and have a better life, but on the other hand, what will happen to my mom and dad? The regime can send your family to forced labor camps, possibly for a very long time. Sokil added that the soldiers were likely unaware of their rights as prisoners of war and may have made their statements believing that any wrong answer could result in torture or death. According to Sokil, the refugees he has worked with describe starting a new life by seeking asylum in another country as like stepping out of a time machine for North Korean defectors. It's like someone from Victorian England coming to modern England. Although the basics of human society are largely the same, it's clear that there's a different level of technology. They might be surprised by something as basic as having hot water or a toilet in the house, he says. Shortly after North Koreans were sent to fight in Ukraine, reports emerged that soldiers who had never had easy access to the internet before were hooked on online pornography. While Sokil is skeptical of these unverified claims, he says that for defectors, the vastness of the internet can be overwhelming at first. In exchange for supplying troops, Kim Jong-un is believed to be receiving access to Moscow's advanced military technology as well as food, resources, and useful war experience. The blood of ordinary soldiers is always useful because it is so important to have real combat experience, says Professor Mark Galliotti, a senior research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute think tank. It gives them, and more importantly their officers, the opportunity to see what modern 21st century warfare looks like and to learn from those lessons.